try again. Yes. There we go.
Yay!
Yay. Hi, nice to meet you, Libby.
Hi.
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 Thanks for having me on.
Of course. Thanks for
Thanks for,
joining us.
yeah, thank you for coming on.
I'm happy to. I see you've got all my books behind you. That's sweet.
Isn't that rad?
Sweet. And you've got like a cool library stand for that's neat.
Yes.
Book
Little
display.
family heirloom.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, I guess I will just do the awkward intro real quick. So, um, this is the third episode of On the Serendipitous Side podcast, where we are connecting the authors that we absolutely love with all of us readers, very carefully, though, of course. And we are so happy to have Emily Austin on. This is a freaking dream. So, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, that's so sweet.
And if you want to just do kind of a little intro about yourself.
Sure, yeah. So I'm a writer and I'm in Canada. I don't where are you two from? Where are you?
Michigan.
Michigan. Okay, yeah. Not
Florida.
too far. Florida's far, but
Yeah.
okay. I feel like you have a Florida vibe, like the aesthetic of your house is that cool Florida
I think you could be right about that.
vibe. Yeah, so I'm a writer in Canada. I like to write books that center lesbian characters that deal with mental health. Um, my new book, Is This a Cry for Help, comes out next week. Yeah, that's
And it is so good.
So good.
We flew through it.
uh, that's nice.
It's another banger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you want to just read a little bit from whatever.
Whatever it is to try. Yay!
Yes.
All right. Okay, so I'm going to read a little bit. The context is it's near the beginning of the book. The book opens with someone is watching porn in the public library. So that's already happened. And I'm reading someone else has approached the librarian, who's the main character. Can I ask you a question? A man in an ill-fitting suit is hovering by the reference desk. There's a prominent sign suspended above my head labeled questions, and I'm wearing a sizable pin on my vest that reads, Ask me anything. I smile. It's important to control your body language when you man the reference desk. People should feel welcomed and comfortable approaching me. Even when someone asks a nonsensical or obvious question, I need to present as interested and gracious. I nod. Of course you can. Can I record it? He asks, holding out his phone. Sure. Sometimes people like to record conversations. This is particularly true of people with anxiety, attention deficit disorder, as well as some other disabilities. I always say yes. Wonderful. He hits record. I'm a correspondent with Liberty lately. We're doing a story about your pornography policy. A distraught woman contacted me today, voicing her distress when a local degenerate was spotted watching pornography on the public library computers this morning. She said she spoke to the librarian on duty. Was that you, miss? I nod. It seems I've misread this man. He isn't a patron with ADHD. He's a reporter. Though I guess he could be both. Can you please answer verbally for the recording? He taps on his phone. I lean toward his phone. Yes, that was me, and I'm actually a Mrs. Joy and I have been married for 6 months now. Can you explain why you would allow the public library, which is bankrolled by citizens like that woman, to devolve into a godless sex hole? I stifle an urge to laugh. It's important not to laugh at patrons. It's impolite and it can be off-putting depending on the context. The library is not a godless sex hole. I lean towards the phone. The public library is actually a democratic institution. For democracies to work, citizens need to be able to freely educate themselves. Anyone without home internet or a device can come here to access information. You don't have to pay for books or for subscriptions or even for personalized research. Public libraries are sometimes referred to as the last free space because we're one of the last places that exist in the public domain without the expectation of spending money. I'd be happy to recommend some books about the history of and what twisted, debauched universe is a publicly bankrolled space where creeps can binge watch porno, a democratic institution. Perhaps you're confusing democracy with fascism. I consider this suggestion, then say no, definitely not. Fascism is a system of government led by a dictator who usually rules by forcefully and often violently suppressing opposition. You're forcefully and violently subjecting innocent women to deviance watching depraved sex acts. I'm tempted to comment that the sex acts weren't really that depraved, but instead I say, respectfully, sir, I think that's a misrepresentation. Well, of course, it's unpleasant to be in the vicinity of someone engaging with it. People can technically watch porn anywhere. I was just on the bus last week when a man was watching. We pay for the library, he interrupts me. We pay the electricity bill. We pay your salary. We're paying for that perv's access to porno. The bus is also subsidized by taxpayers. That's 3 minutes.
I love it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. There are so many mic drop moments in that where it just, I want it on a t-shirt.
That's cute.
So, for interesting facts about space specifically, I have to know why space and why bald men?
Yeah, so that's my second book, and it's about this woman who is irrationally afraid of bald men. Uh, so that was originally when I started writing that book, I thought, okay, I want the main character to have a phobia. So I started Googling funny phobias. And I found that bald men, like that's an actual phobia that people have. And I was like, oh, that sounds funny to me. So I was like, okay, I'll work with that. And I also thought like, okay, that, you see bald men, but it's not like grass. It's not like it's everywhere, right? There's like enough that it would be an issue. Um, but anyway, so I wrote that, and then I found out that the CIO of Simon and Schuster is a bald man at the time or something. I was like, oh man, that's not wise. And every time I've had to read it, it's always like I look out into the crowd and I'm like, there's like a disproportionate large amount of bald men for some reason. And so I may have picked something else in retrospect, but yeah, it was just from a list of phobias. And space, that was sort of a tricky way for me to, and space is so interesting. And I find something I do when I'm writing is like, you know how obviously you get writer's block sometimes, and a nice thing that I like to set myself up for is to be like, what's something that I could, when I don't feel like writing, read about and still kind of trick myself into feeling like I'm being productive. And I was like, space, that's a fun one. I'll just read about, I'll make myself feel like I'm being productive when I read scary things about space. So,
That makes sense.
yeah.
So that's actually kind of a question I was going to ask was, what was the writing process like, researching process like for the space book? Did you do a like mad amount of research on space before, or would you just research as you wrote, depending on what arose within the novel?
Yeah, that's a fun question. Well, I think I was sort of, obviously I'm trying to write a little bit like, I'm trying to find me, I'm trying to subtly, I'm trying to be a writer where there's like a metaphor, right?
Right.
So I like to read things about space and think like, okay, like how could that be like kind of like poetically connected to the
Yeah.
storyline? So, like a star burning out, for example, is used in the story a little bit as to represent the main character's worry about her mom's mental health, and she thinks about like black holes and like I tried to find, I was reading things with that lens where I was like, how can I make that like connected kind of symbolically to the story. And then in that story also, I made the main character has a job that's kind of like my day job. She's an information architect, so that was an easy way for me to, and she's not like an expert in space.
Yeah.
That was intentional because I
Yeah.
was like, if an expert in space reads this, they're going to be like, this isn't. So she's got
Amateur hour.
Yeah.
exactly, yeah. So she's got like an interest in the fun facts kind of thing, but
Yeah. Well, it really comes through like the metaphors and everything. I really like that a lot. It was really,
thank you.
yeah, thank
And
you.
even some of the other parallels, like between Enid wanting to leave on a high note, like with some of the relationships, she's like, I'd rather just, if things are good, I'll just bow out. And then having been left by her father, there's so many parallels. Were all of those intentional beforehand? Like, did you know where you were going with them?
Let's pretend that they were all into. Yeah, I think whenever I'm writing something, I'm like, obviously you're trying to do certain things, but there have been times where I'm like in a context like this, where someone will say something that I'm like they'll be like, oh, I noticed how you did this, and I'm like, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that
I
was
did
smart
that.
of me.
Absolutely. So, in regard to Enid, whom we both love so much, and her relationship with her mom, which is just my favorite aspect of the book. But when you were writing interesting facts, did Enid or the plot come first in regard to like the chunkiest idea that was inspiration?
Yeah, whenever I write a book, the way like my writing process is normally I'll write like the pitch first. So I'll write just like a paragraph at the top of a Word document that'll be like, this is a story about a woman who has an irrational fear of bald men and feels like someone's stalking her.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done that for all my books. Over my first books, so there's a morbidly anxious atheist lesbian woman who stumbles into a job at Catholic church, that kind of thing. And normally I'll write that, and I'll write that thinking like, is that a book I would want to read? Like, how can I make this read as something I would want to read?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll write the first chapter, and I kind of write it without having, like, I'm not planning it. I know some writers will have like an Excel document or something.
Mm-hmm.
Normally I'll write that, and then I'll write the first chapter, and then with the context of what the pitch is, I'll kind of be like, okay, what would it make sense for this character to be like? There's certain things that I like them to always be like
Mm-hmm.
lesbians who have
Yes.
mental health problems, and
Yeah.
obviously there's certain things like I couldn't like fake someone else's sense of humor, for example, so they're all going to have certain. But anyways, I try to think like, okay, what's their main problem,
Mm-hmm.
what's their damage, and then truthfully, normally I'll do a bunch. I'll write like the pitch, write a chapter, and then I hate it, so I have like 50 that are like, those are really bad. And then over time I go back to them and pick at them, and then whatever one grows the longest turns
Love it. Super cool.
yeah.
That's wild. So do you have some of those that you'll maybe go back to for future books?
I think that's how they all come out. Yeah, I think so. I think that's normally I go to like an old document, and I'm like, okay, at one point, and I always go through phases of being like, that's really bad. So it's also a funny thing to be like, okay, this was once something I thought was so bad, but here it is.
Oh my gosh. That's wild.
It's wild. It's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy cow. And the what of your books so far, what holds the most meaning for you?
Aw, that's a sweet question. I guess I would have to say everyone in this room will someday be dead, because it was my first book. And I think, so when I think of it, I don't just think of like the story in the book. I think like, oh, that was like, the first time that I had like a novella published before, but it felt different to have a book published. And it was the first time I felt like, I was writing something that wasn't just for me, for kind of, and I think also with your first book, when you're writing it, you think no one else is going to read it. And so there's some aspects to that book that are, I don't know. I think also it's sort of the, when I look back on the books I've written, I think, okay, I wrote that in this time period. So I wrote my new book in the last few years. But with your first book, you kind of have written it your whole life a little bit. Like you've kind of,
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
nice.
So that one feels a little bit more
Very special.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we were struggling to pick what we were gonna have
The
first.
more questions about, yeah. Because they're all so good. So as you know, you're pretty renowned for the happy sad balance that you achieve in your books, which is lovely because I think everyone wants it, but not all authors are able to produce it. But when you first started writing, are you drawn to that type of book? Was it an intention, or is that your organic way of writing? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think, I love to read a book that I find funny. And I think I have a particular sense of humor that is sort of, it's like there's a bit of, so whenever I write a book, in my mind, I want it to be a funny book.
Yeah.
And then they always end up being like, there's like this terrible sadness or something. But and that's the same with reading books. I also find like, and this might just be a sense of humor thing, but I find like something is always funnier when it's in contrast to something sad, right? Like, if you hear a joke after being like if you're at a funeral, I think is a good context where if something is funny at a funeral, it's like so much funnier than any other, So I think that might just be like my personal sense of humor. But I also love books that have dark humor, and that's what I find funny. And I tend to want to read a funny book is what I want to read. So
are people like friends like that have read your work, are they like super expectant of you being funny in person? Like, do you feel a pressure to be funny all the time?
No, I don't think anyone expects me to be. I feel like notably less funny than everyone I'm around. So I'm like, and I whenever anyone's like, oh, this is like my first two books were nominated for this Canadian Humor Award, and I'm like, that this is evidence that I am funny, but I'm not. Like everyone around me is way funnier than me. So
It's awesome. So, I have read and stuff in your new book. It actually talks about it a little bit, but that you have your master's in information and library science,
yeah.
and that's super cool. And I was wondering, so like you worked for a little while as a librarian, but will you just like tell us a little bit about any of that you want to talk about, that
Yeah,
journey
sure.
or anything?
Yeah. Yeah, so whenever I write a book, I like to think about some of my own experiences. So like my first book, I was thinking, and like I told you actually, for interesting facts about space, I'm an information, my day job is reflected in that book. Not for a space agency, but and obviously like I'm a lesbian. There's certain aspects of my that I'm pulling from my own life. And so with my new book, I'm a librarian, so I went to school for library science. And when you study library science, there's all these different libraries, right? There's a public library, there's like academic libraries, there's law libraries. You can also work in like non-traditional library spaces, like Enid, for example, would have potentially the same degrees
Yeah.
as me, but she's working for the space agency. Um, but yeah, I think uh, it is a certain like knowledge set to be a librarian. And I was thinking about I was looking at my books and I was thinking about how lucky I am to have books published, and particularly books that center lesbian characters. Because when I was in library school, which is about a decade ago, one thing that you study is collection development. So this is this class where you study how to like build up your collection in the library. So how do you make sure you've covered the topics that should be there? How do you make sure you have the right resources? Um, and so I had this major project in that class, which was to look at a particular subject area and then assess libraries in Canada, in my case, for how well they represent that subject. And so I picked
Mhm.
LGBTQIA plus books. And again, this was about 10 years ago. Things have changed a
Oh
lot.
yeah.
But at that time, when I looked across the sampling of libraries across Canada, nobody had like a sufficient collection. Like it was never, and there's certain mathematical equations that are like, okay, like, there was math behind what it should be,
Right.
and it didn't have it. And then the next part of the project was to recommend what books they should put in their collection. So, and that's based on criteria like award-winning books, like reviews of books, like what makes a book good quality,
Uh-huh.
right? So I did that, and I found that not enough books existed at that time to fill the gap. So, and that has changed a lot. There's a lot more. There's lots of really great LGBTQI plus books. There's obviously room for more for sure, but it has improved a lot.
Thank goodness.
But because I have that awareness, and I have been lucky to have books published that center lesbian characters, I thought, oh, I should write a book that is about that kind of connects these two things, because there's a relationship obviously between what I'm doing and uh, you know
Right.
uh, queer books
Mhm.
and libraries. So yeah, I don't know if that answered your question or if I
Oh
missed
yeah,
anything,
definitely.
but
It's super cool. Yeah, really
yeah,
neat.
thanks.
So when you pitch books, then do you go to the Canadian part of Simon and Schuster?
No, so I have my literary agent is American. And so my primary book deals are have been with Atria Books at Simon and Schuster.
Hmm.
But because Simon and Schuster, there's this like,
Yes.
hierarchy of, relationship. They have like a sibling, which is Simon and Schuster Canada. And so whenever part of the like book deal is that because I'm Canadian, obviously I want the book to be in
Ah,
Canada. So I work with them too. And that's a really great team of people too. They're both really
I
nice.
didn't I
Super.
didn't realize Atria wasn't in Canada.
No, yeah,
Also, I thought they were
yeah,
both places. Huh.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So while we're still on the topic of books and reading, do you have any favorite authors or books or anything like inspirations? Or people love to hear that. We all love to hear like what our favorite authors read or like
Oh
to
yeah.
read.
Lots. It's a tough. A Canadian queer writer who I really like is Zoe Whittall.
Awesome.
She's a poet and a fiction writer, and she's really I'm always really happy to read her books, and she's quite prolific too. So there's a lot to
Well, I'm
read.
not familiar, but I
She's
will
really
change
good.
that.
Yeah, you know, she might be more in Canada, so that's
Yeah,
a good
that's a
one.
great rec for people. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
I think
oh
her
gosh.
most popular book, I don't know, but I think The Best Kind of People was one that maybe it would be a good starter. But she also has she had a recent short story collection, a novel called The Fake, that's about this woman who pretends that she has cancer. The Spectacular, and that one is about sort of about like the decision to be a parent. But yeah, there's lots
Oh,
of
that sounds amazing. Yeah, you have me wanting to read it.
yeah.
There are some that when you see the cover, you'll be like, wait, no, I do know.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I love Jen Began is a really great writer. Yeah,
Same. Yes. Yeah.
she's
I
really
just
funny.
reread all of hers last year.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah,
can't get enough. I'll always just keep reading her books.
yeah. She's great.
She's hilarious.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
She's got
Yeah.
the
That dark humor you were
yeah,
talking about.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Those are great recs.
Thanks.
Yes.
Yeah.
And is the yellow or are the yellow walls in Interesting Facts About Space on purpose kind of a nod to the yellow wallpaper?
I think so. Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Yes.
My undergrad was in English lit, so I like to do the little, to
Oh,
leverage
that's
the piece of
cool.
knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that and then the everything with the head in the oven, that was just great. I mean, not you know what I mean.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Oh.
I'm looking through my notes still. Sorry.
We've kind
No.
of hit most of my main questions. I mean, of course, we have tons of stuff we want to talk about with Is This the Cry for Help? But it's kind of hard to do without spoilerishing
Yeah,
stuff
fair
for the people
enough.
listening who haven't received arcs or anything.
Yeah, fair enough.
But
The relationship between Enid and her mom and everything with mental health. Hopefully Em and I aren't going to cry, but could you go like just kind of touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So with my first book is really focused on the main character's own mental health crisis. So when I started to write Interesting Facts About Space, I thought, um, which also does deal with the main character's own mental health crisis, but I was thinking a lot about the impact of what it's like to, love someone who has mental illness. And so I was thinking about a character whose mom suffered with depression and how that impacts you. And I wanted to sort of focus on that a little bit in Interesting Facts About Space. um, that book is also a lot about Enid's fear of intimacy and how hard she finds it to get close to anyone. And so I was also, she has this friend named Vin who she doesn't really have many friends. And one of their connective ways of sort of seeing each other is that they both have moms who have mental health problems. So I was partly thinking a lot about that experience, and how that sort of shapes you as a person and how it impacts your lens on the world. And it was also meant to be, Enid has this fear of intimacy and she thinks something's wrong with her. So she spends a lot of the novel thinking that she has a parasite, for example, as a way to sort of,
mhm,
show that she's
yeah.
like, something's
Plankton.
rotten in me. Yeah. And her relationship with her mom is partly meant to show that she is capable of loving someone and caring about someone. And, because she has this fear that she's this bad person. And despite having like a desire to be with people and has like, she's on dating apps, she wants to have
Right.
some connection to people, but she sort of gets in her own way because she thinks she's not a good person. She worries that she will like hurt people. She doesn't want to be like a bad spot in people's life. So I wanted her mom to show, like, Enid, for example, goes and checks on her mom, and she goes and does her laundry. She goes and like looks, make sure that she's doing okay. Yeah, and her lipstick.
My
Yeah,
favorite part of the whole
Yeah.
book. She goes
yeah,
and checks until she has lipstick on again every day.
yeah. Oh. Yeah, so that was meant to sort of show that what she's worried about herself isn't actually true, and that she does have the capacity to be, a nice person in someone else's life, and she is capable of love, I guess, is the crux of the story.
So do
That
you
was
feel like her relationship with Polly was different because it didn't stem from that cookie cutter casual online dating? Like she met her in a circumstance that was obviously very different, and I felt like reading it that was one of the reasons maybe that their experience was different than the other
Yeah.
ones. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I was also writing Enid as being someone who is very like pattern focused. And
Mhm.
so she'll have she'll connect with someone on a dating app. She sends them similar texts. She ends it with this same canned response. So for her to have this different relationship with Polly, I wanted it to break the pattern a little bit so that she couldn't follow her repeatable pattern.
Mhm.
So yeah, that
I
was on
loved
purpose.
it. I loved it. I love their relationship. It's really just everything. Her relationship with her mom and Polly and her friend. I love
Aw,
their relationship. It was just really easy to be very emotionally involved in the book.
oh,
thank you.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
yeah, very. And it's still a fun read too. I can't get over the like how am I in tears, literally in tears, and then cracking up within like two
aw,
pages.
that's so sweet of you
Same with
to
We Could Be Rats. Super
Yeah.
funny,
Yeah.
but also incredibly,
aw.
yeah.
Did you know already going into We Could Be Rats that you wanted it to be epistolary?
Yeah, that one I was writing, that's a good example of one where I started writing it and it was often one that I was like going away from. I kind of started writing that as more of like a writing experiment. I thought I started writing it was like right at the beginning of lockdown and COVID, I think is when I first made the first bit of it. And I was struggling to write at that time. I think when you're like, more isolated, it's less, you
Yeah.
think of less things.
Yeah.
It was a little creatively stifling. And so I was writing that sort of thinking like, okay, I don't feel like I can write anything right now. So actually another thing that book does is it's written in letters and it's written by someone who is a bad writer. So that was my tricky way of being like, I feel like I'm a bad writer right now. It's like, I know a loophole here. I can write a character who's writing this. So that's how that came to be.
Do you think you'll ever do something that isn't just a novel? Oh, I have a cat hair floating around. Sorry. Do you
You
think
see
you'll
it. It just
ever
looked like you had a ghost in there. Yeah.
but do you think you'll ever try that again?
I think, I do like I find I often have like most of my books are sort of first person present tense because I find that easier for humor and generally I'm trying to write. But I think I'll definitely try other things too because I find it fun to do that. I find it like creatively puts you in a different mindset.
Mhm.
So yeah, I don't know if I would do like letters specifically, but I would definitely look at other perspectives and other formats and things like that, just because I think it forces you to write differently.
Growth.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Are you
exactly.
still writing poetry too?
A little bit, not as much, but a little bit, like not a collection, but
Mhm.
here and there. I find
Yeah.
poetry is another one where actually that's kind of where I learned what I just said. I find like if I'm struggling to write something, if I write like a poem, I find that like a nice creative exercise.
That's cool.
um, it makes
Yeah.
your brain think differently, and then when you go back to writing whatever you're originally writing, you sort of have a refreshed perspective a little
That's
bit.
a great tip. Yeah.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
Like a brain break in a way.
Hmm.
yeah, sort of, yeah, yeah.
Huh.
Awesome.
So are you able to talk at all about if you're working on something now and anything about
I,
that?
I'm always trying to work on something. I don't have a new book to announce or anything, but
Right.
yeah, one book that I'm working. I have this situation where I have lots of things, and then I think, oh, that sucks, and then I start going to something else. But one that's sort of further is about when I was in high school. Like I said, I like to draw from experiences I've had, and I often think about jobs for some reason. But when I was in high school, I was a janitor at a grocery store. And so right now I am writing a book that's a janitor at a grocery store.
Love it.
Kind of evolved. Yeah. So we'll see
Yeah.
what happens with that.
I work at a grocery store.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Part time
How
now,
is
but
it? Things are
wild,
probably harder now, I think.
wild.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so crazy. You just never know
Yeah.
what's going to happen at a grocery store.
Yeah. There's a huge, that's part of what I was trying to, and I'm sure things are different, but I was writing about it's that book is sort of thinking a lot about how it talks about like people leaving food in the aisles and like not putting their cart back and
Yeah.
like doing, like socially kind of falling.
Socially bankrupt patron.
Yeah.
Tell us how you really feel.
It is wasteful. You
Oh,
have to
yeah.
throw all that food away when you find it. You can't just go stick it back in the refrigerator, you know?
That's
Yeah.
true. That was
Oh,
something because we always had to. I was the janitor, so we would take the garbage, and I always remember there was like a sushi bar, and the garbage at the sushi was like so heavy and gross because it
Yes.
obviously was like rotten fish, but it was like the heaviest bag of just like dense food. It was like this is
sad.
terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
ugh. Man.
Well, that's all my questions. You've answered everything I could think of.
Chat. It's been fun.
Yeah, I think, well, this is more of just a side note. I really need you and Miranda July in a room to talk about bald men.
Oh.
Have you read The First Bad
I
Man?
have, yeah. Miranda July that's another really, really cool writer. I've heard she's like a hoot too. So,
I bet
Yes.
she is.
She's,
Yeah, she
she
seems
seems
like it.
like it.
yeah, she seems like a delight. Yeah, that would be fun. I'll see. I'll ask. I doubt that I have.
Well, if we ever get a hold of her,
Oh, yeah.
we'll
Yeah, we'll let you know. Yeah, well, thank you so much for joining us. It was wonderful having you today. This book, everyone should read, releases on the 13th of January, so very soon. Is this the cry for help? Thank you, Emily Austin, for being here with us.
and to Aardvark too. It is an Aardvark pick.
Yes.
If anyone is part of the Aardvark book club, and even if they're not, this is a perfect book to sign up with. So just throwing that out there too, that Atria and Aardvark have put this one, or will be putting this one out on the 13th.
Yes.
Thanks.
So yeah, thank you so much for coming on. This is literally, we can't even, this isn't even real life.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so sweet of you to say. It's so nice chatting with you. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much, and Happy New Year.
Yeah,
Happy New Year.
Bye,
Bye, Emily.
You too.